apa ni, apa nama dia, saya panggil tu, ada dua approach lah when it comes to the PSM 2 ni. Those that I sense from your draft. Number one, for example, is like your Aina dengan Nisa kan. Your objective, it states something on significant difference kan? Betul tak? Nisa dengan Aina?
Betul.
Okay. So when you mention significant difference, so I would imagine that the content of your chapter 3 would be slightly different from Amy, for instance, and also from Yuren lah. And because Yati is here, so from Yati as well. So your methodology chapter would be different. So I'm going to show you how your methodology chapter would look like lah, especially if you include those kind of objective as part of your research objective. So I have with me few examples over here. So I have number one, this one. This one is it's long time ago. Okay, so kejap okay, so this student, Q Kyron, so he was doing PSM with me, and he did on that kind of significant different kind of thing lah. So I'm going to show you how things are going to be include. What are those things that need to be included in his chapter 3. Okay. So basically these are all the same lah for everyone. Chapter 1 that will be on introduction. And in the introduction punya chapter, so we're going to have the introduction, background, problem statement, research question, aim, objective, scope of study. So what would I expect at this point of time? So hopefully your chapter 1 is somehow or somewhere there, which means that based on the comment that you received last time during your PSM1 Viva, so you took all those comments and you integrate or you include in your chapter 1 lah. So I hope that has already been done, and any further discussion on that, so I hope that has already took place after your PSM1 Viva last time. So I hope that has already been sorted out lah. So that will be on introduction. Okay, and then coming up to literature review, which is chapter 2. Okay, this is where things will be somehow different lah from between one and the others lah among you, because your literature review, that would reflect whatever research that you are going to do. So that will be your literature review. Okay, so what would the panel would like to see from your literature review, or rather the examiners would like to see later in your literature review chapter? If I can recall the marking sheet lah, so it would require you to discuss things in details lah. Not to say in detail, which means that you have to include a lot of material lah in your literature review. Because if let's say you are having like 30 or 40 pages only for literature review, but nothing there, nothing is explained in detail, also is not useful. So what the panel would like to see, or your second reader would like to see, is that you are discussing or you include those things which are relevant with your study. So if let's say Nisa is doing on road maintenance works, the urgency of road maintenance works. So I hope you understand what are those things that you need to include in your literature review chapter lah. So number one is, I think the panel commented on the definition or the concept of urgency. So Nisa, that one need to be included. And then number two, obviously, that topic on road maintenance works, it has to be included. Definitely, because that would be the main body of your literature review lah. Okay, now coming to that, I would say those aspects, taking Nisa as an example, right? So urgency for road maintenance works, and then the types of road maintenance works required. Okay, so those are the basic stuff for your literature review chapter. But the most important thing that you need to include in your literature review chapter would be the things that you are going to address in your research objective. So for instance, if let's say in Nisa case lah, So she was looking, she's going to look into what would be the factors influencing something, or what would be the impact, or what would be the effect. So that would form part of the important part in your literature review. So it needs to be there. Okay. So so what I'm trying to say now, at least now you're going to have two aspects in your literature review chapter. Number one is those general stuff. In Aina case, you are looking into technical knowledge understanding kan. So the concept of knowledge understanding ke, and then another thing is on technical knowledge understanding, and then construction student, and then you need to explain on why construction student becoming the topic of your study lah. What's so important about them? That would reflect the significance of the topic that you are going to study. So that would be your literature review. So same goes to others. And Yati, for instance, you are doing something on training kan? So training to certain types of contractors. So I hope you understand what are the things that you have to include in your literature review. Okay? And then apart from that, this applies to all. So yes, Yati, nak tanya soalan ke?
Doktor, saya punya literature review based on juga the based on saya punya objektif kan. Cuma objektif tu ada perubahan, objektif ketiga tu ada perubahan lah. Tapi
Yati mention apa objektif 3 tu Yati? Saya tak ingat semua sekali.
sebenarnya objektif ketiga tu apa ni, kita perlu kita nak
Ada draft dalam folder tak? Yati ada draft dalam folder tak?
ada.
Ada kejap, saya tengok. Folder PSM 2 tau.
Oh, sebelum update lagi doktor?
Maksudnya masih dalam folder PSM 1
Ya.
Okay, so saya tengok jap. Sebab Yati hari tu saya share guna email yang sebelum ni tau, yang email Kuskop tu.
Betul.
So hari tu saya nampak Yati maybe you log in using different email kan. So that's why you are requesting for access tu. Okay. Yati Okey, untuk mengenal pasti faktor signifikan yang menyebabkan kontraktor bermitra kurang minat terhadap latihan kompetensi. Okey. Mengenal pasti strategi signifikan. Okey, yang ketiga, faktor-faktor yang signifikan dan strategi yang signifikan. Yang ni tukar apa, Yati?
Cuma yang ini panel minta saya serapkan ke dalam objektif 1 dan 2.
Okey. So dia nak dua objektif je
Ya, betul.
Okey, alright. Okey, so masalah Yati sekarang jadi macam mana? Kenapa?
Jadi dekat saya punya literature tu saya perlu berbagai kelas tu macam mana doktor? Berbagai kelas tu.
Yang berbagai kelas ni patutnya dah dalam the starting of your literature review yang itu dah mention dah.
Saya maintain yang tu je ke doktor?
Boleh maintain je. Objektif tu
Maintain,
just diorang nak masukkan je.
Alright.
Okay. Okay, so yang spesifik tu nanti macam Yati kalau nak tanya yang spesifik tu nanti. So saya nak pergi yang general dulu Okay, so this is the examples from the previous students lah. So if you look at here, so the first student here, so he's looking into trust trust. So trust in the transferals of digital information. So his content for his literature review would consist of two aspects lah. So number one is trust, and number two is transaction of digital information, trust, transaction of digital information, and number three, which is very important, is the combination of that two concept. So if you can look at here, okay, kat sini dia he mentioned about trust, and here he mentioned about trust dimension, Okay, and then before that he mentioned on construction information. And then towards the end over here, so he combined the two between trust and construction digital information. So that's why he has this part lah in his literature review. So this would be the combination between trust and the transference of digital information. Okay, so this is the aspect where your examiners or your second reader will be looking into your draft later on. So in order for them to assess the criticality of your literature review, so this is the aspect lah. So how do you join between one aspect and the others? And somehow when you join that two aspect together, okay, so that would be something that is going to enrich your discussion lah. So that's the reason why we have that part which we combine between that two aspect. Okay, other than that, because this student he was using questionnaire survey, so that's why he has this lah trust dimension and also the components of transferals of digital information. So why do he needs the trust dimension here? Because when he developed the instrument for data collection, so the trust dimension is becoming the important aspect lah, the important aspect in the design of the instrument. Okay, so this is examples number one. Okay, in relation to that, so this is the literature review chapter, and then coming to the research methodology chapter. So you can see here, so literature review chapter that would explain how you carried out the research lah. So you are going to think like you have already completed everything, and you are trying to document the steps that you did in order for you to complete your study. So that's the purpose of chapter 3 lah. So even though I do understand that currently you are still progressing on that, so it means that the way you write probably in the in the current tense rather than explaining something that has already been carried out. But in chapter 3, definitely you are trying to explain the things that you have already done. So I'm not telling you that it needs to be in the past tense lah, but somehow you have to keep that in your mind. So normally, for those using questionnaire survey, the research methodology chapter, that will be very brief, but it would be very nice to start with the introduction, and then you're going to explain your research design. I hope by now you understand the types of research design, especially those who are doing using that questionnaire survey as your instrument. So what is design? So we have cross-sectional design, we have cross-sectional, and kind of research. Then you are going to do that cross-sectional design. Cross-sectional design means cross-sectional design or longitudinal design, or in some books they call it survey design. That cross-sectional design lah, people call it as survey design or case study design. So when the term design ni, so if you read a few books, they are going to use different kind of terms lah. I hope that is something that you are going to realize by now. In some books, probably they are going to use longitudinal design and cross-sectional design, and maybe you read from some other books, they call it survey design, case study design, and other kind of design. So some names they imply the same thing lah. It's just the name that they put is different. So if let's say you are using certain types of book, so better to keep using that books. So the terms that you are going to use would be something that is consistent. So you cannot use just this book and then the other book, and then in terms of the terms you keep on jumping around. So you're not going to have that consistency in terms of the terms that you use. Okay, and then this is where the next part, which the student outline the research procedures. So in terms of the research procedures, so it's going to depends on you lah. So maybe the way you design your research process is different. So the way you explain would also be something different lah. So like let's say in this example, he started off with phase 1. So phase 1 is the literature review part, and then phase 2, the instrument development, which he developed the questionnaire, and then he did the research sampling, research instrument, pilot study, reliability test, and normality test. And then I don't know, for some of your objective, so you can do with just using Microsoft Excel, or maybe you have already sent out a Google form can. So when you send out Google form, so the responses that you are going to get is by way of that Google sheet. So you can do that analysis straight away from your Google sheet. That is no problem with that. And for those like Nisa and Aina who are going to do that significant differences kind of thing can, um, you can't run away from using SPSS lah, because you can also test that significant difference using Excel, but it's going to involve a lot of formula lah. So I would rather suggest that you should have SPSS with you. So as soon you have that responses with you, do that coding, data coding straight away in SPSS. Or if let's say you are collecting responses using Google Form, I mean your questionnaire survey tu you design using Google Form, so you are going to get your responses in Google Sheet kan. So what you can do, if you are using SPSS, you can actually import those responses directly into SPSS. So you don't have to do any kind of coding lah. But the thing is, before you import your responses to SPSS, make sure that you check everything is in order. So there is no missing values. Those questions that that's compulsory to be answered is answered. So when you run the analysis later on, it will be something that is meaningful. So that's something that you have to do. Okay, and then in terms of the filtering analysis, preliminary analysis of your data, so this is what you should supposed to do lah. So you need to carry out that normality test. Okay, reliability test, this is the outcome that you derive from conducting that pilot test. So you conduct pilot test, so you got responses, and then you carried out reliability test. So the reliability test, that would be a test to test the reliability of your instrument, not the reliability of your data, the reliability of your instrument. That's the reason why when you do pilot, once you complete the piloting process, then you do straight away your Cronbach Alpha. So that will assure your instrument reliability. And your Viva panel would love to ask this kind of question lah, because they wanted to know whether you understand or not the process of developing that instrument. So one of the reason why that outcome from the reliability test, it has to be presented. But somehow when you present that result from the reliability test, but it has to follow the correct sequence lah. So you start with the pilot study, and then reliability test, and then you go for normality test. So the purpose of that normality test, you can also Google this out lah. So the purpose of this normality test is actually to determine, especially for Nisa and Aina, whether you are going to use parametric or non-parametric tests. It's very important for quantitative research lah. So in the case here, the student use Kruskal-Wallis lah, because Kruskal-Wallis, let me check. Kruskal-Wallis is non-parametric equivalent of ANOVA, which is the test of significant differences for more than two groups. It means that when the student did his analysis, when this student did his analysis, he was comparing more than two groups. So that's why he was using Kruskal-Wallis. So if let's say you are having two groups in which you need to compare, then you are going to use different tests lah. So you're going to use Mann-Whitney or the t-test. So that's a different test altogether. Okay. I remember who's going to do all those kind of significant difference analysis apart from Nisa and Aina? Amy, you're not doing that, right? Amy not doing that, right? You're not doing that significant different kind of analysis, right? Oh, forgot already. Ayo. Okay, Amy. How come you forget? Okay. But before you do that, okay, don't forget to do that frequency distribution and also mean analysis. So this is part of the thing lah. So at this current time, what I would suggest you to complete is actually by now you should have at least carried out your pilot. So that is at least lah, which means that your instrument has already been developed, and perhaps I have already go through your instrument and I said, okay, the instrument is okay for you to collect data lah for your research. Okay, if you haven't done that, so perhaps it is a very high time for you to start designing your instrument, because I'm worried that the data collection process, that's going to take you some time. So, if you spend a lot of time in the data collection stage, so that's going to delay you later on when it comes to the analysis and also writing your chapters lah. So I'm really worried on that lah, because from my previous experience, so if let's say the submission of so let's look at this one, PSM2. So submission of LAP draft to supervisor on 21st May. So from now to 21st May, we are having like another 2 months, kan? Bulan 4, bulan 5. So we have another 2 months. So normally in April perhaps, so those who are those who are left behind, so they are trying to catch up during this time during April. And you have to remember that because in April, if let's say you just starting to collect your data but the thing is on 21st of May you have to finalize your report, and because you need to submit your draft on 21st May. Okay, so I can imagine how could you prepare those instruments within that short period of time. So I hope you can avoid doing that because that would impact later on your the quality of your writing because it happened to me last time so those who can manage their time well, normally they have already done their instrument by now and start to collect pilot data, and soon when they get their pilot data, they're going to run the Cronbach Alpha straight away. And depending on the results of the Cronbach Alpha, later on they're going to continue to collect the data lah. Okay, so that will be the thing. And while you are collecting your data, so don't just sit around doing nothing, but you should actually work on your chapter 1, 2, and 3 while waiting for the data to come back lah. So that's what you need to do. So hopefully by the time that the data came in, so you're going to just concentrate on the last 2 chapters of your PSM, which is chapter 4, on the results, on the analysis, findings, and discussion, and also the last chapter, which is chapter 5, which is the conclusion. Okay, so if you were to ask me whether to have 5 or 6 chapters, so I would rather to keep it simple, to have just 5 chapters. So chapter 1, that will be on introduction, chapter 2 on literature review, chapter 3 on research methodology, chapter 4 that will be on data analysis, findings, and also discussion. Don't forget the word discussion, and also don't forget to include the element of discussion in your LAP, because that discussion part, it forms a lots of portion of your PSM2 marks. So if you just present results without putting in any discussion, so that's where your marks are going to be discounted lah. So please include all those discussion in your finding later on. Okay, so that is in terms of the timetable. So please manage your time properly. Okay, and then in phase 3, data analysis and reporting, these are all the things that he did. Okay, so let's look at the first one, starting from phase 1, which is literature review and background study. So I just want to show what he included in his report lah. So this is what he did in his in phase 1, literature review or the background study. So basically, he explained the process that he has already carried out in order to conduct the literature review lah. But most importantly, that literature review process that would result in the table that you presented before in PSM1. If you still remember lah, so you got that author. So you have that factors or everything in which you tick and then you present it as part of your PSM1. So that is actually the ultimate outcome from your literature review, in which you are trying to look for factors or anything lah that would contribute to developing your instrument. So that would be it. And then in instrument development, so what you need to include, these are some of the example: questionnaire design. So how do you divide the questionnaire that you design? Maybe you have section A, B, and C. So what are those section A, B, and C, and so on. And then research sampling. So you have to explain appropriately the kind of sampling that you did. So perhaps you did purposive sampling or or non-random sampling. So it has to be stated, and also some justification why you are doing that lah. And then research instrument, and then comes the pilot study. Okay, so this is the section where the student include that bits on reliability test, and this is the results of the alpha. So the total number of item here, it refers to the total number of questions that you have in your instrument. So if let's say you have excluding of course lah the demographic parts, because the items that you are going to put into that analysis for Chromebook Alpha is definitely those questions that you ask the respondent to answer. Okay, so the number of item here for this student are 50, and this is the Chromebook Alpha, and you have to appropriately interpret what would be the explanation behind these numbers lah. So if let's say 0.7, can it be accepted? Is it acceptable, or there is something that we have to do if we are getting this kind of result? Okay, and then normality test. So normality test, it can be included here in chapter 3 or in much recent PSM which I supervise. So the normality test I began to rearrange into chapter 4, which it makes more sense lah, because the reason why we have that normality test is actually to look into the appropriateness in terms of the parametric and non-parametric tests. Okay, so this is normality test, and then data analysis and reporting. So just briefly explain. So how you are going to present your finding later on. Okay, so for mean analysis, so I've seen quite a numbers of you got different types of scales. So majority of you are having like 5 points Likert scale, which is something that is considered as normal lah. But some of you, Amy, if I'm not mistaken, so you're having 4 points of Likert scale. So there is nothing wrong with having 5 or having 4, but either you choose 5, or maybe if you choose 4, then you have to explain why you make that selection. So it's not just like following what others has already done, and then you thought that this is the way how you should be doing it. No. So you need to have your own rationale why you choose 4, why you choose 5, and then should be included under your research methodology chapter. Okay, so in this examples, before he run the Kruskal-Wallis test analysis, so what he did here, he needs to check for mean analysis. Okay, so this is what he did here lah. So this is how we determine the range of the mean value. So if let's say you're having 5 points of Likert scale, so normally you are going to have like 3 range of mean value, but this is not something that is rigid. Okay, so you can have 3 mean range, you can have 4, or even you can have 5. But we want to make sense of the data that we have. So if let's say your Likert scale is 5, but then your mean range is also 5, and it doesn't really make sense lah, because it's going to explain the same thing like your original Likert scale. So that's the reason why for 5 points Likert scale, normally we are going to have 3 mean range lah. So whatever the findings will be later on, they are going to be grouped under either one of these 3 range of mean value. So Kruskal Wali test, so I need to explain depending on the kind of analysis that you are using. So if let's say macam contoh NISA, because you are comparing between rural and urban kan. So when you are comparing between rural and urban, so your test would be either t-test, or the equivalent of non-parametric would be Mann-Whitney U-test. Mann-Whitney U-test. So that would be for NISA, okay? Because you are comparing two groups, rural and urban area. Okay, so in the case of AINA, AINA, you are going to compare between male and female, even though we have silent gender from the objective, but still you are going to compare between that. So the choice of analysis that you are going to do later on would be similar to NISA, which you are going to use t-test, either t-test or Mann-Whitney U-test, depending on the results of your normality test. So I'm not sure whether Dr. Hazrin will conduct further session on the SPSS lah. I believe she's going to conduct, because that's what happened last time. So when student already got their data, okay, so Dr. Hazrin will conduct that test, that session lah. So she will teach how you are going to run the analysis depending on the kinds of analysis that you want to run. But the thing that I would advise is that when she call for that session, so hopefully you already have your data with you, okay? And that data should have already been key in SPSS. So when she call for that session, so you can just straight away presented, so this is my data, so I need to run in AINA or NISA case, either Mann-Whitney or t-test. I want to run this test, and how do I do with it? Okay, so that would be the session. Okay, for Amy, for Yati, I don't think you are going to do that kind of analysis. So you are going to stop at the mean analysis. Okay, so you are going to stop at here lah. So this is mean analysis. So you're going to stop here. And I can't remember urine, but I think urine, are you going to?
The panel suggests me change to interview.
Yeah, that is method for data collection, urine. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so oh yeah, that day we discussed on that. Okay. So in the case of urine, so that would be something different lah. I show you that example that I have that analysis using NVivo. Did I?
No.
Oh no, okay, I see. Okay, so perhaps later I'm going to show to you lah. Because when it comes to interview, then the types of analysis that will be different from Amy, Yati, siapa lagi, Nisa and Aina, who's going to use SPSS lah. Okay, but for Amy and Yati, it's not necessarily for you to use SPSS lah. In both of your case, you can use Excel. That would be sufficient.
Oh, okay, doctor.
Okay, because urine you need to use because I would expect that the data that you are going to collect from that interview would be qualitative data. Is it correct, urine?
Oh, sorry, doctor. So quanti what?
Yeah, qualitative data.
Oh. Yeah, doctor. So means I can use back the ticker skill.
I just want to see what you, I just want to refresh what you are doing. Okay. Okay. Okay, so if let's say you are doing something like this, let's say you are doing interview kan, I think I still remember what we discussed last time lah, why you need to go for interview, and we try to put the rationale why you have to do the interview. And the reason why you are doing the interview because you want to identify the factors and also the challenges. Now we need to have that method in which you can analyze your data later on. So you are getting your data from an interview transcript. So how you are going to analyze that interview transcript? So how you are going to analyze those things that people said and whether you can quantify or not what they said. Okay, so that will be your challenge lah. Transcribing and actually trying to understand what the people said in relation to the objective that you are going to solve or to achieve. Okay, so that would be number one. So you can see here how things are being laid down for chapter 3. Okay, so data analysis and discussion. So this one will be applicable to Nisa and Aina. Okay, so you can see here how the questionnaire is analyzed. The data from the questionnaire is analyzed. So they start with sample of demographic. So how many responses that they get, how many questionnaires were administered, and how many sets of questionnaire that were written back. So that would be one of the things that they have to explain, included. And then you know, this is what this table, table 4.2.1, this is what we call as cross tabulation. So cross tabulation is you know, a kind of a descriptive analysis that we use to compare two different kind of thing lah. So what we are looking at is actually the frequency of certain things in there. So contracting, this one is organization and professional background. So what this table is trying to reflect is actually from contractors, firms, and then how many their background is QS, engineer, and other and architect, and also other construction professional. So this is the purpose of this cross tab. And then this one is still sample demographic in terms of the working experience. So let's move forward. Okay, so this is the mean value. So this is the mean value. And once you have that mean value, the next thing that you have to do is you need to have this graph. So why we need to have this graph is because we want to see if there is a differences in terms of the responses that we have across different professional. So what are the professionals that this student was doing last time? Those are QS, engineer, architect, and other construction professionals. So if you look at here, you have 4 different groups. QS, engineer, architect, and other construction professionals. So 4 groups, so that's the reason why the student use Kruskal-Wallis lah. Okay, now looking at this graph, so you can see that there are differences in terms of people perception on the transmissions of on the trust on trust issues, on the transmission of digital information. So this is what this graph is trying to reflect lah. So by having this graph, we know that they bound to be differences. So the next analysis that we are trying to do is actually to find out whether those differences are significant. Why? There, at the end there. Close the door. Use my slipper. Okay. Okay, so by having that graph, so we know that there are differences, but we need to determine whether that differences are significant or not. So one of the reasons why we run that analysis lah. In Aina and Nisa case, that will be Man Whitney or t-test. Okay. So some explanation on that, and then because there are different section kan. So that's why you have a different graph over here lah. So I just want to show you on that Kruskal Wallis. Okay. So this is the outcome from the Kruskal Wallis. So all the data that you key in into SPSS, the the kind of the analysis that you run on that data. So in the end, this is the results that you are going to present. Ini saja, this table. So what we are going to look at here is actually here. The significant value over here. Here you can see 0.95, 0.51, 0.51, 73, 78, 72, 87. So what the number represent here is that, okay, if a significant level is less than 0.05, result show is statistically significant, which means ada significant differences. Ada significant differences. So what you see here is that, so what you see here is that the result here is not statistically significant lah, which means that across all type of professional, so there is no significant differences in terms of their perception on trust. So sebab the result, semua result is more than 0.05. Okay, it's not statistically significant. So that will be your result. So that's how you need to explain your result. So all the things that you did, all the data collection, everything, so it will come to this. So for Aina and Nisa, so these are the things that we have to find out. And these are the results. These are the results. So this is in chapter 4. Okay, and then come to section, chapter 5, the last chapter that will be just on the conclusion and recommendation. Okay, let's go to the second example. Second example, this one from another student. Okay, another student. Okay, so let's look at chapter 2. So this study is on how QS firm trying to stay afloat during economic uncertainties. Okay, so this is the those are the topic that the student did lah. Okay, so you will see the these are the things that the student did for the literature review. So you can see the combination of challenges and also the strategies. So these are the main thing that the student would use to develop the instrument. So that's why it's been included there. And research methodology. So you can see the common ingredient lah: introduction, research design, location of study, population, procedure. Okay. So she go by phase also, phase 1, phase 2, and also phase 3. Okay, pilot study, reliability item, normality test, instrument development, and also data analysis. And same goes with this. She's using Kruskal Wallis test because she's comparing the significance of group more than 2 groups. So what are the groups that she compared? Those were a different size of firm. So she wanted to know whether a different size of firm, big, medium, small, so whether they have a different strategy in dealing with economic uncertainties, especially in QS business lah. Okay. So let's look at chapter 3 over here. Okay. So chapter 3 here. So again, research design. So research design, that will be on, those things that I've already mentioned earlier. And then location of the study, research population. So this is how she sourced the number of firms in Johor, number of QS firm from the board's website. So research procedures, and then background study, and also literature review, instrument development. analyze, report. So these are the pilot study results. Okay, so how many? Okay, so these are the number of firms participating in the pilot study. 31. So reliability item. So this is what the table or the Cronbach alpha value represent. So if you wonder, so if let's say you score somewhere around 0.7, so that will be considered as acceptable lah. So if you score less than that, for instance, 0.6 or less than 0.7 lah. So it means that the instrument that you develop, the items that you put there are all questionable. So why is it questionable? Because it calculates the mean value between the items that are responded by the respondents or the samples. So when your respondents for the pilot study, they give different kinds of answer to the same question, so your Cronbach alpha value will become low. One of the reason because number one, perhaps your samples or your respondent, they don't understand the question that you put in. So that's the reason why people will give a different answer to the same question. Okay, the best is that if let's say you are giving out certain types of question, so to your pilot study respondent, the best is everyone will answer the same for the same item. Okay, so if let's say for pilot study respondent, you have 15 or you have 10, and then for that one particular questions or for the whole question, so everyone who's answering your pilot, your survey instrument, they answer the same thing. For instance, 4 or 5, 5 macam tu. So it means that everyone understand your question correctly. So that's where you're going to get the best numbers of alpha lah. But that rarely happen lah, because the interpretation of question to different people, that will be different. So they're bound to be differences in terms of the way people would answer the question. Hence that will be the result of the alpha value lah. So if let's say you got 0.9, that will be the best. It means that those people who answer your question, they answer the same throughout the question that you put in your survey instrument. So normality test. Okay, so she was doing something different, right? Because she was putting everything according to the codes. Okay, and then same thing, mean analysis. Okay, the same formula. So she decided to have 3 mean range. Okay, same like the one before. Okay, and also she did on Kruskal-Wallis. So this is the data analysis part. Same thing. Number 1 is the analysis of the survey received, and then these are still on the analysis of the respondents, work experience, and okay, size of business. So these are the 4 groups which makes her decide that the kind of analysis that she's going to do is Kruskal-Wallis, because she's having 4 different 4 different groups. So micro enterprise, small enterprise, medium enterprise, large enterprise. So this is a business lah. So Amy, I would expect you are going to do something like this lah. So this is what I meant when I read through your questionnaire last time. So I was thinking that what would be the standard of business size that you are referring to. So if let's say you are saying that there are 3 types of size of business: small, medium, large. So what would be your basis to say that business, they're having like 3 different sizes, types. So these are the justification that you have to make. Okay, and then again, comparative mean before you conduct Kruskal-Wallis or any inferential kind of test. So you are going to have this. And then let's look at the significant differences in terms of the challenges and also the strategies. So this is the results. The significant value over here and also the significant values over here. So if you look at here, there is nothing that is less than 0.05. Everything is more than 0.05. So if it's less than 0.05, it means that there are significant differences. But if it's more than 0.05, so there are no significant differences in terms of the items among the groups that you study, which means that the people who answer your survey questionnaire, okay, they are having, even though they come from different group, different types of size of business, they still answer, their perception in terms of what would be the challenges and strategies to maintain a business amid economic challenges are still the same, irrespective of whether the companies that they work in is small, large, or medium size. Okay, so this is important lah. So we know that, even though there are different groups of companies, but still their perceptions on something can be treated as one, as a whole. It's the same. Okay, so that's the object. So if I were to quote Nisa, so in the end, we want to see whether when it comes to the urgency of road maintenance works between rural and urban, are there any significant differences in terms of the necessity to consider something as urgent, okay, between rural and urban area? Okay, so we would expect that there would be something that is different lah, because maybe if let's say there is a road defects in the urban area, so the rectification work they are going to do it quick compared to if it's happened in the rural area. But we just want to see the data, whether the data would support that, or whether the data is going to prove otherwise. Maybe who knows, even though in urban or rural area, probably the level of urgency is the same. Kan? What I'm trying to say is that if there is a road defect happening in urban area, or if there is a road defect happening in the rural area, the treatment would still be the same. So we want to see that. So if there is a significant differences, which means that your significant numbers later will be less than 0.05, it means that there is a differences in the treatment of road maintenance works in terms of the urgency between rural and urban area. So maybe later, based on the data, we would know that, okay, so any defect in the urban area, so the rectification works is going to be carried out quickly. But maybe in rural area, rectification works are not going to be carried out quickly lah. So that is the significant difference that we wanna see. Value, it means that your data is wrong? No, definitely not. So it's just an indication based on the data that you gather. Okay, so what else? So let's look at the next one. Okay, so another example is from this student, Alicia. So you could see the same thing over here, but the student stops at measure of central tendency. So what she did was she stopped at mean analysis. So we look at that. So start with the introduction. So the same thing. So this would applicable also to this one Aina, because what she did here for this student, she distribute the questionnaire to her own batchmate lah. Okay. Data collection method, research instrument. So this is the alpha. Okay, so this is the result from the alpha. Okay, so what else? Data analysis. So she used 5 Likert scales, normality test, results over here, measure of frequency, measure of central tendency, the interpretation of mean value. So that will be the easiest lah. So you stop at mean value. So that will be the easiest. But you need to know how to do this lah. So if let's say you have 5 levels, you have 5 Likert points. So if let's say you decide that you want to have this 3 mean range value, so you need to know how to calculate or derive to this table. Okay, so data analysis and result, normality test, Shafiro-Wick. So this is result from the normality test. So this one is from the demographic information, gender, program of study, measure of central tendency. Okay, so you can see here, she was using percentage lah. She was using percentage. And then, okay, there's an overall mean over here. Okay. And this one is for extrinsic motivation. So the previous one that was for other thing. Okay. Okay. And then this one is for barrier. Okay, and that's all. And so that will be the way how she did her analysis. Okay, so what else? So this one is from culture on the performance of construction project. Okay, Nabila. Okay, so let's say research methodology. So what she did, okay, mean analysis, mean analysis. And this is how she did for the research objective 1. Okay, so this one is from Shahira. Okay, Shahira was the first student which I supervised way back in 2017. 2017 ni. 5 years ago. Betul kan? Nah. Oh, 6 years ago. Okay. Okay, so those are some of the example lah. Ni tak apalah. Those are some of the examples. So I hope you know by now how you can proceed with your research lah. So if let's say you have already done with your research instrument and you have already passed that to me and I said, oh, okay, you can start to collect your data or pilot data, by all means, please start collecting your data as soon as you can, okay? Because I don't want you to cram, the last months before you submit your PSM, you try to cram everything there. Data collection lah, writing and everything. So you can see all these examples that I showed to you. So see how they laid out the reports. So it is neatly justified, and then those tables that they include, it following the format. Okay, so this is something that you have to understand lah, and I think you have already got the template with you, and try to follow that template when you are preparing your draft. That's very important. So don't submit something that something like, okay, so the one is good, but the thing is you could see the margin the margin that's not following or maybe the size of the paper lah, maybe. Okay. And then if you're using image like this, okay, make sure that you quote that image in your text, and make sure that the image you put the source from that image lah. So if you are taking it from a website or anywhere, so and make sure that you include a note that refers to the source of that image. That's important. So it's not like yes, Yurin.
No, I just say okay, doctor.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then another thing, such as your the spacing between paragraph to the other section. So you need to be very careful with that as well. Because the thing is, we are trying not to annoy your second reader. When your second reader read your draft, so we want them to feel that the draft that they are reading is the finished product of what you have been doing. Okay, so don't present something to them like, you know, you are not following the format, and then, you know, like you have this spacing between the paragraph which are not following the template. So it will give that impression to them that perhaps your PSM, you are not ready for submission. You are, you know, preparing something in a hurry, and what you are submitting is actually something that is unfinished. So we don't want to give that impression to them, because it's very dangerous. Because when the second reader sense that, okay, so this is unfinished, there's a lot of things you can just look at the, you know, template, the formats that the students are using. So that's where things becoming dangerous lah, because they have already set that impression in their mind. They feel annoyed. They feel annoyed reading your draft. They think that this is not ready yet. Okay, don't compare your submission for PSM1, because when you submitted your PSM1 last time, it was only me who read your draft. And you know, we've been working together for in preparing that report lah. So you know, I don't mind having that kind of you know, kind of presentation, because I know exactly the contents of that. You know, I know exactly the content of that, the draft that you are submitting. But when it comes to PSM2, because you are submitting to me, and no, I mean like your LAP, it's not going to be only me who's going to read that LAP, but also the examiner, the second reader. Okay, so we try not to annoy them. We want to make that impression that this is done, this is finished, and it's ready for submission. Okay, so that's my concern lah, basically. So definitely, if you are working in a hurry, so I don't think you'll be able to you know, check again your formatting, the templates that you are using, you know, with can invite something that is not good lah, from the examiners later on. Okay, so I hope that you are currently working on your chapter 3, and also your you know, you finish your literature review, your instrument are there. And if you are done with your pilot, for example, Yati, you are done with your pilot, so maybe you can proceed with some form of analysis towards your data, because you know, we don't have that much time. We are now in week number 2 or 3, if not mistaken. Time flies so fast, so make sure you're not wasting any of those. Okay, so I think those are the things that I wish to cover this afternoon. And unless you have anything to ask.
Doktor, doktor ada contoh untuk snowball sampling method tak?
Saya tak pernah buat.
Oh.
Siapa tu? Nisa Nisa, actually, whatever sampling method that you are going to do lah, I'll give you an example. So, for instance, kejap. Cocaine is sama juga. Okay. Sebenarnya it doesn't matter whether you are doing random sampling or non-random sampling. Basically, the way you are going to explain how that sampling is going to be carried out would still be the same. The basis is random and non-random. If random, of course lah, you need to start with sampling frame. By having a population and then sampling frame, and then you can pick your sample. So that is random sampling. So if let's say you are doing non-random sampling, so what are the approaches or the options that are available for you to carry out non-random sampling? Okay, but then you need to justify lah the reason why you decide that you want to do non-random sampling, even though it's your PSM1 Viva panel who suggested that you have to go for snowball sampling or non-random sampling, but in your draft you cannot tell, or during your PSM2 Viva later on you cannot tell that, okay, because the panel asked me to do snowball sampling, that's the reason why I'm doing snowball sampling now. You cannot answer like that. Okay, so the best thing that you can do is you have to find out why snowball sampling or non-random sampling is the best approach for you to carry out your sampling process. So doesn't matter lah. So you have to read more lah. I mean, what would be the difference between random sampling and non-random sampling? And then basically your chapter 3 would consist of what it means by you start with non-random sampling, and then what it means by snowball sampling, and you have to outline the strategy how to carry out that snowball sampling. So you are going to snowball first, and why you make that decision lah. Yeah? So that would be the non-random sampling, especially on snowball sampling. Okay, other than that, yes, I mean. Mm. Again, I don't understand. Mm. What, 2 or 3? What, you want to do 2 Likert scale, 2-point Likert scale? Okay, so instead of 4, you want to have 5. Then? Wait, I don't understand. Okay, from what I knew from your instrument, currently you have with you 4 scale kan? 4 points. 4 points. Okay, so what you want to do now, you want to add another one so it become 5, is it? Okay. But then during result analysis, you want to you want to reflect that you're having 5 instead of 4, is it? Wait. Hold on. Okay.